Good evening, fellow preppers. Welcome to the show. This was Brian's suggestion, so you can thank him for this one. We seem to get a lot of questions about the solar stuff. That's right, isn't it, Brian?
There's been lots and lots of questions regarding power and what to
Yeah,
do in a grid down and people not really understanding how it works. So it's really just to give people a chance to ask any questions they've got and maybe try and explain a little how it does work.
yeah,
So
yeah.
if
I
you've
know.
got
I
any,
know. For someone like me who's like completely new to it, the thought of just prepping stuff that doesn't need electricity is much simpler. So it's all quite scary when you're looking from the outside.
it can be as simple or as complicated as you want it to be. And the reality is, it boils down to what your needs are or what your anticipated needs are and what your skill set is and what your budget is. So if you want to have lights in the house that last a long time in the event of the grid going down or whatever, you buy a little power bank that size, right?
Yeah,
20 quid. And buy
yeah,
a set of strip lights, little LED strip lights, drivers, stick them around the room, that'll power that days and days. And then
yeah.
to recharge it, you could get a 100 watt solar panel off TeamU, something simple, plug it in the USB port, stick it out the window in the garden. It could be that simple, right?
Yeah.
At the other end of the scale, you might want a full house backup. You might want your kitchen going, an induction hob, your routers to work, your TVs to work, your skyboxes to work. So
Off grid
that,
completely.
yeah, or in my case, it's kind of like that, but semi off grid
Mm.
because geography will play a part on your power system. So if you're north of the equator, as Scotland is, and it's famous tropical climate, we don't get a lot of sunshine.
Yeah.
So you'll have to have secondary and possibly tertiary power sources, depending on what your needs are and what your aspirations are. Uh,
I've seen the sun up there once before. I remember
I
that
think it
day.
was a Tuesday this year.
That was summer sorted, yeah. In the comments, we've got Miss Worm. Hello, Miss Worm. The Hungry Tourist,
Hello.
Kelly, and yeah, everyone else is being quite quiet. Stephen Young said, I started prepping 5 years ago. So interesting what this conversation is. This conversation's all for you guys. So it's about getting your questions in. Brian has pretty much gone the whole solar solution for grid down, whereas I'm more okay. I've no power,
Well,
but I'll live off candles and manual tools.
which is fine. This is where the aspirational part comes in. What you would like versus what you would need.
Mhm.
Then how are you going to do it? As in, can you do it yourself? Do you have to have help or get somebody in to do it? And funds, so these are all factors.
Yeah, setup costs is probably the big one for a lot of people, especially with cost of living. I mean, is it something? Obviously, like you say, the bottom end of the scale, you can get a solar panel off Timu and power some fairy lights. But if you wanted the whole hog, is there a cheaper, cost-effective way to do that? Can you do it incrementally, or is it
Yes.
a case of you've got to have one big investment?
No, you can do it incrementally. So say for on that respect, say you wanted to do a home solar setup, right?
Mhm.
My personal opinion, well, there's two facets of it. If you're getting solar installed, get the batteries done at the same time, and I think it's still the same, but you don't pay the VAT on it, right? Yeah, it's a lot cheaper if you get the two done at the same time, and you really should get the two done at the same time because in the winter months when you're not getting the solar that you would normally get,
Mhm.
you can go into a cheap tariff like Octopus Cozy or Intelligent Octopus, depending what your needs are and what best suits you. And for that scenario, your batteries would be charged, let's call it Octopus Cozy, from 5 in the morning till 8 in the morning, and then from 1 in the afternoon till 4 in the afternoon. So you've
Yeah.
got two bites at the cherry at a cheap tariff, roughly a third, just slightly more than a third of your unit cost to get cheaper electricity. And then on the other side of the coin, from a prepper point of view, even though the prepping part is you're saving money for a start.
Mhm.
You can set it so that you reserve some of your power and your batteries for a potential grid down situation, like the electricity goes out. But what you've got to make sure of is the inverter, hybrid inverter that you've got, they're designed to get the islanding mode. So if the grid goes down or the lights go down in your local area, you could be faced with a situation that you've got fully charged batteries, but nothing works because it kills the power in your home as well, so that you don't zap little Jimmy the linesman as he's climbing up the pole to put a cable back on the transformer. So
Right.
make sure that your inverter is of a type that's either wired in essential circuits, because if it's like mine's a Solus hybrid inverter, you've got
Mhm.
an auxiliary socket that, so what I've done is just wired it into a double socket so that I can run an extension reel to the fridge freezer, the TV or whatever, right? But you could also have dedicated circuits that will run in your house. You could have all your lights on and everything else,
Mm.
and it'll work as a UPS. So if the lights go down, depending on the model you get, it'll switch over straight away with no noticeable difference. Your computers won't crash, that kind of thing. So
Yeah.
it depends on, you need to know what you want, and you might decide to add batteries later on. You might decide to double your battery bank. You might decide to add more solar panels on a different string.
Yeah.
Or, sorry, on you go.
No, no, I was agreeing. Go on.
Or if you went for, there's another option that I'll do a video on later. I've still to buy another module. Say you went with an EcoFlow power bank, you can get I can't remember the power stream module. It's 100 quid on top of the power bank price. But essentially, what you can do is stack a solar panel outside your home, lean it against the wall, even if you have to, right up to the limits of your power bank. You plug it into your power bank, then into the power stream, and then you just get the plug, stick it in the wall. Right? It'll take up to 800 watts of solar, and you can have it either charging the battery or the backbone of the grid of your house up to 800 watts. So that would run an average size fridge, right? It would run a couple of sockets, something like a microwave, 1,000 watts, to give you an example. It'll still give you the benefit because it will cover some of the base load of your appliances, so it will save you money. So if you've got 800 watts of solar coming in, for talking's sake, you're maybe only going to have to draw 200 watts for the grid, right?
Right.
So that's a poor man. It's not a poor man's solar. Sorry, I don't mean it to be offensive, but it's an option that you can lift and take and stick in your bug out vehicle, panels on the roof, and you're good to go. So you don't have to go down the route of a traditional array. You could have something like that you can pick up, bug out with, and you've got your solar panels with you as well. That's an
Yeah.
option.
What's kind of cost are people thinking when it's something like that?
So say you went for a Delta 2 Max, that would be a 2 kilowatt power bank, right? To give people an idea of what that would be, that would run 1,000 watt microwave continuously for 2 hours, right? Or 1,000 watt heater for 2 hours. Just simple numbers.
Yeah.
I've seen that, Miss Worm. Very good. So, but 2,000 watts would run a lot of kit, medium appliances. See the base load of your house with your router, your skybox, a couple of lights, your fridge, freezer. It's 500 watts without any added solar input. It will run everything for 4 hours. Right?
Mhm.
That's about 1,600 quid for that. Or you could get the Delta 2. I'm only concentrating in Eco Pro products because that's what I've got, so I can talk about it. But there's other options. Anchor, Jackery, Blue Yeti, I don't rate, to be fair. But so you've got your EcoFlow Delta 2, that'll cost you now 600 quid. You can go to City Plumbing, you'll get a 420 watt solar panel for about 65 quid.
Yeah.
So you can parallel them up, 4 of them, and that's, you get a 1 kilowatt battery, potentially 800 watts of solar coming in, and a backup power point. So that's the kind
Yeah.
of idea of what you're looking at. You'll have a couple of plugs. You need to buy smart plugs and your power stream box, 100 quid. But £1,000, you would have a viable solar system that's got a built-in charge controller, built-in inverter, built-in battery. so that you can take out with you and bug out,
Yeah.
or you could build your own.
Cool. We've got a couple of questions coming
Go
in.
for it.
I'll put there's some previous that are not like people are just asking what they want, you know. But Alpha Kilo Hotel says, what's the lifespan of that setup and would it be easy to repair?
Lifespan of the Delta 2 is guaranteed for 5 years, and it's got a lifespan of 10 years to 80%. Right? It's got a manufacturer's warranty of 5 years, and they state that it will have at least 80% efficiency left in the battery potential after about 10 years. So it's something like 3,500 cycles, right? You would have to be using it an awful lot to even use that up within 10 years. And even if you did, all it means is the capacity's dropped a bit. You might have lost 20-30% capacity, but it will still work, all things being equal. As far as easy to repair, it depends how good you are with a multimeter and a soldering iron, to be fair, possibly even an oscilloscope, because it's an all-in-one unit that you've got. The only downside, and it's worth mentioning since you asked the question, it's a single point of failure. So if it fails, you've lost your battery, you've lost your solar charge controller, you've lost your inverter, you've lost your really convenient portable power source. So although it's convenient and it's great to have, it represents a single point of failure. That's why I bought 3 of them, because I don't want, you can buy extra battery modules to plug into them to give you more capacity. For the sake of an extra £100, I would say just buy an full box, because you could have 3 extra batteries and you've got lots of capacity, but if the main unit goes down, you've lost everything. So you want to try and eliminate that single point of failure.
Yeah. So buying more full units instead of just
Yes.
replacing batteries. Yeah, makes sense. Dartmoor said, what about gas for cooking? I got jet boil and camping stove. I've got a load of gas for grid down situation. I've linked it a few times. I've sent it to you, I think, as well, Brian. The 20 odd pack on Amazon.
I've got them as well. I think it's about 38 a minute.
Yeah, it's cheaper than going getting it from home bargain sort of thing. But again, it's not a permanent solution, right? That's no matter how many you stock, it's going to run out.
I mean, that kind of brings us on to another thing. There's nothing wrong with the jet boil. There's nothing wrong with any of that. It's, if you're using that gas, it's a finite resource that you may not be able to. I mean, if it's an extreme situation that we can't ever get any of this shit back, you've got, as a prepper, fundamentally all we do is deal with resource management. We can call ourselves whatever we like, but all fundamentally, when you boil it down, all we do is manage resources. It might be your stock, it might be people in your mag. All you're doing is managing the resources, be it people, equipment, or supplies, and that's all we do.
Yeah.
So if it's a total catastrophic grid down situation, your gases and perishable resources are something you might not be able to easily replicate. But if you've got a solar setup that is functional, you could use an induction hob.
Yeah.
So that saves your gas.
How protected is it against things like EMP? Without having it all inside a Faraday cage and stuff, how protected is it already against what's the likelihood of it lasting through something like that?
That's largely a how long's a bit of string question. It'll depend to how close to the EMP blast, if you like. As if say the blast's up in the air as it probably would be, the further you are away from it, the less likely any adverse effects are, right? But it's not a hardened system. None of the power banks are hardened at all, right? So what I tend to do is keep one of the Delta 2s in a trash can, like the Brian swear box, if you like, because I was swearing building the bloody thing. So
it's a great video, by the way. If you get a chance, go and watch him. He's edited out the best bits. I'm still waiting for the 18
the
plus
director's
version.
cut.
Yeah.
I mean, if you were doing, if it's a Carrington event, you would probably be okay if the thing's not plugged into the wall.
Yeah, of course, because it's main lines that it's going to affect. And it's,
it would be just through the main power line into your home and fry it that way. So once it's charged, take the plug out. Depending if the EMP happened, if it happened, if you're close to it, there's a likelihood and risk that it may be fried. It's, I don't know. It's how long's a bit of string, that one.
What about the panels themselves?
You can't blow them, you can't fry them.
Right. Okay. That's good to know. Yeah.
You wouldn't fry that. There's no even going to be a circuit going through the solar panel until you plug it into something. So
Right.
that's something people should know as well and be aware of. Because I was discussing it with somebody on Facebook who was telling me I was wrong. It's like, well, I've built a few, so I'm not wrong.
Yeah.
Say you've got solar panels, right, on your roof, against the wall, whatever it is, right? And then you've got a charge controller. So in your system, say you're building one, Mike, right? So you bought a solar panel. You need a solar charge controller next, and then you need a battery. Fuses, isolators, we'll forget all that, but fundamentally need three things as a minimum. You need a means of charging it, which is your panel. You need a means of controlling the charge, which is your charge controller. They need something to store the charge, which will be your battery, right?
Mm-hmm.
So before you plug the panels into anything, you need to plug it into the battery first. So wire it up from the battery to the charge controller, right? Because if you wire it up from the solar panel to the charge controller first, you'll cook it, right? So I just answer that as we go. Sorry.
So it needs to have somewhere to put that energy before you give it the energy.
Otherwise,
source.
the power's got no way to go. It'll cook the unit.
Yeah. How quick does that happen?
I've never done it.
That's a video we need to do. A question here from Johnny, which is an interesting one. General question: in SHTF, do you think that full solar setup would make yourself a target by advertising a full solar setup on your roof and lights running, etc.? OPSEC, what's the OPSEC side of this?
In the area that I live, I would like to think it would make you an asset, and it's a possible trading resource, because people's phones that have went flat, you could trade a candle for plugging them into your power bank and charging up their phone, charging up their radio, right? It gives you a certain amount of leverage. It gives you a certain amount of negotiation and trading ability, I think. But if you're in a grid down situation and you've got all your lights on and the curtains open, excuse the language, you're pretty fucking stupid, right? Don't do that. Don't do that. That's a bad call.
Yeah.
The blitz mentality, have the curtains shut, even for keeping the heat in and stuff. But the panels are black anyway, so at night time, nobody's going to see them. Where they would have to be round the back of the estate anyway, and it'll only be locals that would know. So as long as you're not got lights on and the Batman searchlight, you'll probably be okay. I would tend to think you could use it as a trading resource.
Mm-hmm.
So it's a good thing, I think.
Yeah.
Good question.
So people who have these solar setups that were done off these grants by the councils and stuff like that, and they don't get anything from it, it's just all like trickle back. Would they still have that option to be running in SHTF, or are they going to be as screwed as everyone else? Because if that's the case, the solar panels on the roof are not a giveaway on themselves anyway, right?
No, say that, well, if the grid's down, their inverter is almost certainly going to go into islanding mode. Okay?
Mm-hmm.
So you don't electrify somebody on the grid. So it's essentially a lump of metal at that point. But the panels aren't. Yeah. Unless you can figure out a workaway around the inverter and modify it in some way to work and function, or unless their specific model has got an auxiliary output. But if there's no batteries, they're not charging anything anyway, so they would have no reason to have an auxiliary socket.
Yeah.
So if the lights are down, it's probably junk. It's nothing to work with. But you've still got the panels. You could always get neighbours' ladders, get the panels down, pull apart the MC4 connectors, plug them into somebody else's power banks.
Yeah.
They're never wasted.
Yeah. Cool. I like it. CJ says, quick side point. Apparently, Scottish people can't say purple burglar alarm. Can we quickly test that theory? Are you willing to say
was a burglar alarm?
Purple burglar alarm.
Purple burglar alarm.
There you go. Myth busted. This is what we're here for. He had to concentrate, though. Yes, I noticed.
I did have to concentrate.
I'm ready for the Scottish borders. Are you? Do you think is that an independence thing?
I don't know how to take that one, to be honest, Stephen. I don't know. I don't know what you mean. If you want to elaborate, I'll try and answer it.
Just scanning through for questions and not just Miss Worms putting some stuff up there. The Faraday test vid. She's great with the links. Paul Thomas says, "Don't worry about an airburst EMP. If any side tried it because of the launch, it would be World War III." So yeah, I think he thinks it's going to be total annihilation after the fact anyway. But
yeah,
would it?
We can perhaps not. But we're always hoping that we're not glowing in the dark. I always go on about a book, Paul, called 1 Second After. If you ever get a book to read for prepping, read that one. It talks about everything that we're talking about just now, and especially from an EMP and potential war point of view, and how people struggle through without power and everything else. It's a fantastic book. But if there was an EMP and there was a war, then geography will kill me 9 times out of 10. But I'm always prepping for the day up until that. And we're prepping for such an event like your lights go down, the substation blows up for 3 or 4 days. You want to save 200 quid's worth of food in the fridge. These are things we can prepare for, and you can do it with your own solar system, a generator, battery backups. There's loads of things you can do.
Yeah, we can only be as prepared as we can without, digging ourselves into a bunker and wearing bulletproof vests in tractors and doing stuff like that. That's if we go that far, then we're all write-offs.
I kind of changed things as well. I started it with a small petrol generator, and I bought a bigger one at the start of last year. And it's only done about 4 hours for commissioning and testing and keeping it running.
You might be pre-answering Elusive's question. Mike and Brian, would you have a petrol power or not because of noise of running out of fuel? So you've got the audio aspect of it. You've got the fuel is a finite resource aspect of it. And I don't know how much you know about this, but the shelf life on fuel, do you know anything about that? Because I was discussing that. I've just filmed the prepper podcast that's not gone out yet with a South African prepper.
It depends on the content of the fuel and how it's made. Some fuels will go off quicker than others.
Well, he said it's 95 octane where they are, and after 5 years, he used it fine, no problems.
It entirely depends on, so your octane ratio, basically, the higher it is, the more bang, more energy it's got in it. But some of them that are made with ethanol and stuff, and depends the mix that's in it. Some will last longer than others. Now, what I tend to do with petrol is I store about 60 litres. 60 gallons. But I rotate it into my car. So everyday work vehicle, I'll rotate it in at least once a month, and I'll replenish the jerry cans and keep them stored safely. And that way I've always got a fresh a supply as possible. But I'm going to change that entirely now. That is a concern, the petrol. The price of it's a concern. So I'm going to go for a dual fuel one. So when I finish the workshop next year, I'll probably keep that one as a spare or give it to my brother or something. But I'm going to go for a dual fuel one because functionally LPG canisters, they don't go out of date. They don't go off, and you can store them easier than fuel. Right. So you'll get a 47 kilogram propane canister for less than 100 quid. It won't go off, and you can stockpile them easier. Rather than paying the bottle rental, buy an empty bottle off Facebook Marketplace, and then you're only paying for the refill charge. So any fuel you've got, use that up first. Use the petrol, and then you fall back in your gas. It's not going to go out of date. And you've got to look at the runtime hours on it. So you could have let's call it a 5 kVA petrol generator. But it might only run for 2 hours. And it will give you stated, run it 2 hours I'll give you runtime figures. So they'll say maybe run it 2 hours for 50%, then you need to cut it off, right? Yeah. So you want one that runs for at least 10 hours with 50% load. So you always got to look at the runtime of your generator. And the noise aspect of it, At the moment, I keep it in a shed that's insulated and it's got its own exhaust and things. But when it goes into the dedicated workshop, whenever I finish it next year, I'll have an exhaust outside the workshop, and it'll be in a Celotex box to try and muffle the sound levels, keep the decibels down.
That'd be an interesting test to see how quiet you can get that to run.
I'll give it a bash.
There's some content coming up.
So that's a thing changed.
Excuse me. Johnny says, tinfoil hat time. I have a Blue Yeti power bank that comes in a box within a box. Do you reckon covering the inner box with tinfoil will protect against the EMP?
Cover the outer box with tinfoil. The inner box is your insulator.
Yeah.
So it'll come in foam packaging, for talking's sake, Johnny. I'm guessing it'll come in foam packaging, and then it'll have a cardboard box. So it's effectively being held in suspension by the foam within the box. That's great. So you want to that's your insulator. So you want an isolator, the outside, which will be your tin-foil or whatever else you want to use, a Mylar bag, an EMP bag. Whatever you decide to do, test it.
Yeah, I think, definitely test it as much as you can with like phone signal, radio signal, things like that. All these tests are not 100%, but it's the best we can do without a full military lab going on. But what I think he's saying is because of the inner box, if he wraps that and then if it's in 2 layers of boxes, if he wraps the inner one, he can still have it in the outer box, so it just looks like something normal on his shelf and not a giant tinfoil box. I think that's where his head's at.
Yeah, you could do. So, assuming it's in the foam packaging, and then going by what you're saying, it's in another box, then another box again. Is that right?
Yeah.
Yeah, wrap the middle one.
Yeah.
If that's what he means, then wrap the middle one, and you can keep it hidden in the original box. But make sure it's isolated entirely from the isolator.
Yeah, but test it completely. Put a phone or a radio in there and do it with that first and see how that goes. And record,
the results are surprising, isn't it?
Record your swearing. Right. Alpha Kilo Prepper says solar flare would cause EMP. No. It's not an EMP. An EMP obviously is a man-made thing, electromagnetic pulse, which could affect everything in a blast radius, including small devices. Now, the solar flares emit CMEs, and coronal holes emit CMEs. Now, just bear in mind, it doesn't have to have a solar flare to get a CME, and you don't have to have a CME when you get a solar flare. So it's not all guaranteed. But the CMEs that hit, coronal mass ejections, if they're powerful enough, like the Carrington event, they will affect large infrastructure because it's about the size of the aerial. So a power line is a huge aerial, so it's going to receive from that. So the grid power systems, especially some of the US power systems in different states that are very outdated. Now, believe it or not, in the UK, we're quite protected against this. It would have to be something quite powerful. We've got the right isolators in and stuff like that. So no, it's not an EMP. It would affect larger grid systems, but not smaller. Do you want to add to that, Brian?
That's pretty much what I was going to say. The way I try and explain it to people is somebody's just dumped the contents of a battery into the atmosphere. And the only way you'll be able to tune into that is with an antenna. And your pylons, if you like, that's an antenna. It'll travel very, very quickly. The problem's the speed. So your antenna's catching it, and it'll be magnified along your power lines into your home, through the plug, and into the components. And the speed of it is quicker than the latching effects of most MCBs and RCDs. So that's the problem. It's very, very fast, and it can beat a lot of protection. The easiest protection you've got for a solar flare, anything that's critical, don't plug it in the wall.
Yeah.
99% of the stuff, it won't be affected.
Yeah. This is all theoretical because there is some theories to say if it was, I mean, the Carrington event was about an X20, X30, thereabouts. It's not actually written. But if it was like an X150, it's not to say that that wouldn't pick up a tiny aerial this big. Just with what we expect and the way the atmosphere is at the moment, we expect it on the larger things. So cool. Good question. I like space ones. I can do then. Mark V.A. Russell, my question is, if you guys had to estimate how long it would be for stuff to get very real, what would your guys' views be? I see exactly what's happening now, but I'm interested in your guys' take.
Do you want to answer that one, mate?
Had to estimate how long it would be for stuff to get very real. To you, I assume he means grid down happens, and when does it become
Things fall to shit.
Chaos? Now, Brian's book that he mentioned is great. It does go into this, and it made me think about it a lot more, because I must admit I was a bit kumbaya. Like, I'm just going to feed the street and everyone's going to be peace and love. And he gave me a book, and now I'm like sniping people. But yeah, it's there's different theories. I think you've got at least a week, personally. There's different theories. We're only, only 3 meals from anarchy. That's what they say. But I think we would have at least a week, because people would still believe in that period somebody's coming to help them. 2 weeks, naive people would still be of that thinking. A few other people will think, oh crap, I best go to the shop. It's not open. How do I open this shutter? That's where we'll start to see looting starting. Unfortunately, the naive people who are waiting for the 2 weeks are going to be the first to go, because there's going to be nothing left to loot by the time they realize they need to go out and get supplies. So a week to 2 weeks is my guess before it gets to the point of I have to really go full prepper mode. What's your thoughts on that?
It's scenario dependent. I don't disagree with any of that. I would say that, say you had a grid down, because the subject is more or less grid down. Say you had a grid down scenario, or like yesterday, if that had affected the power grid, we wouldn't even be doing this podcast talking about it. We would be living it.
Yeah.
Because to try and rebuild the power grid from scratch, assuming no component failure, it's months. It's months.
Yeah.
So, say after day one, everybody's get the blitz mentality. They're happy. You're talking to your neighbours. Have you heard anything? They've still got food. Nobody's really panicking. Day two, they're getting a little bit antsy. Have you heard anything? Information will be a critical factor. If you've got a radio and you've got an idea of what's going on, you'll be less predisposed to do panicky, stupid shit. But as the fear starts to eat away at people, the compulsion to act will become more and more irresistible. So if you've got no lights, no power, no shops, no money, no information, the time period between action and inaction will decrease rapidly, in my opinion. If you've got people telling you it's going to be okay, even though they may be lying their ass off, yeah, a week to 2 weeks potentially, because you'll be holding on. Big Brother's going to look after you. Did so well during COVID. They were all stand-up guys. So it'll depend on the flow of information.
Surely that's going to happen. Local governments and local police forces will have instructions to say, just keep everyone calm for a couple of weeks, while we get in our bunkers.
If they can talk to them, though, that's the problem. If the grids went down and the backup generators have only got enough fuel for a week, very soon people will be out of position.
Yeah.
More work. I don't know. I need my music on the phone.
That's it. Phone's not just for trying to ring people who also haven't got signal. It's a data bank, isn't it? It's got all sorts in. Jeanette Butler has asked, if you buy a solar panel, does it need to be the same brand as your power station / bank?
No, absolutely not.
Is there anything like that? Do any have custom connections, like iPhones have a lightning cable?
It's like an XT60 or an XT70. So your solar panels, no matter where you get them from, will all have what they call an MC4 connector, right?
Mm-hmm.
You can buy them. You can buy adapters, Y diverters, male-female adapters, or you can chop the ends off them and put your own on. It's dead easy to do. There's a million guides on it. I've done it. It's straightforward. If you buy the panels from Blue Yeti, Jackery, EcoFlow, they're taking the piss with the price. For a panel that's got any real value in terms of charging up a decent sized power bank, they're taking the piss. It's nearly the same price as a panel. You'd pay £400, £500, £600 for a 400 watt folding panel that if you look at the reviews of people that are using them, as they're folding them and doing this with them all the time, they're falling to bits.
Yeah.
So save the money, buy a 420, 430 watt full size solar panel for about 60, 70 quid from City Plumbing, Bimble Solar, 12 Volt Planet, any of these places. You can leave them in the shed. They've got the MC4 connectors on them. All you need is an adapter to go from the MC4 to your power bank, and that's it. You need to be aware of the voltage from the panel doesn't exceed the voltage that the power bank can take. That's all you need to keep under. You can go over the current, right? Doesn't matter, it'll automatically throttle that. So it depends what people know. You can always over panel. If you've got a single panel at 430 watts, but it's like 20 volts for talk's sake, and your maximum input voltage in the power bank 60, parallel them up 2 or 3, as long as you don't exceed 60 volts, it's fine. It doesn't matter that you're going over the watts that it can take, it'll automatically throttle that. So the more surface area you've got, the more sun you'll capture. Just keep the voltage within range. Always keep the voltage within range in the panel, right? The current, the watts doesn't matter. The amps, you can forget about that. That'll sort all that out for you. Voltage is critical. Don't buy their panels unless you really want a folding panel. I would suggest you've got space in the side of your shed, in a room, against the wall, whatever you like. Fling a sheet on it. Even better, lean it against a frame, plug it in, make it make some money for you.
Yeah. Make an interesting dining table and talking point anyway. Is there nothing to how you say it regulates the wattage and stuff, but not the volts? Is there anything you can get to regulate that so it doesn't matter what you plug it in? So if you've got a field, say you've got 10 solar panels set up in a field and you just want to leave it there, but it's producing so many volts, can you plug different things in? Is there anything to stop that overloading?
Well, you could put it in a separate string. It depends on how many input channels your say it's a power bank we're talking about. The bigger power banks will have 2 inputs, so you could run a separate string, right?
Yeah.
Of maybe another 4, right? So some of the bigger EcoFlows can take 1600 watts, 2000 watts. So you could have maybe 4 and 4 on a separate array, separate string, and plug them in. It's up to you to make sure that your input voltage doesn't exceed the unit's capabilities. Yeah. Forget about the amps and the current. It doesn't matter. Doesn't matter a crap. That'll throttle it. It'll chop it for you. The onus is on you as the panel wirer, the installer, whatever it is you want to call yourself. You make sure that it's under 60 volts, 80 volts, whatever it is.
Yeah, cool. Mr. Atom Blue says, unless it's a space nuke, US have a launch on warning in their doctrine, which will detect the intense heat from ICBM. My opinion on that, Mr. Atom Blue, is and that is another deterrent that they've got this and it's public knowledge. But if it happens, there's still going to be lots of second guessing. Do we really want to press this button and start World War III? Is this a one-off missile? Is this a rogue nation? I don't think it'd happen as quick as people think it would happen. I think Brian said it before, I believe, that people would want to believe the lie. Right? What book?
Annie, I'll get it for you, mate. Basically, she does writing for DARPA about Area 51. She's been on Joe Rogan. You'll see her on different podcasts. She's released a book called Nuclear War, and she talks about launch on warning and how little time they've got to make a decision.
Yeah.
It's minutes. It's minutes. And a lot of people in the chain have got to decide, is it a launch, is it a test, is it a flare? And they've only got so many minutes in the boost phase before they can decide where it's going to go.
Yeah.
And then they've got to decide, okay, so North Korea, in the scenario that they postulated for that, North Korea's launched an ICBM. But to counter-launch, they've got to launch over the top of the Soviet Union and China, who then, I don't want to waste the book, but it's a tight situation. Yeah, they've got launch on warning, but given that the White House is near the coast, you've not got a lot of choices, a lot of time to make choices. The Russians have got a slightly different one. They use dead hand.
Yeah. Yeah, the dead man. Yeah, I know about that one. Yeah. That's a hell of a responsibility. Punch this code in every so often, otherwise, game over. Don't ring in sick for work for that job. Mr. Atom Blue has actually asked you a question as well, to check and confirm that you could charge an EcoFlow power station main unit plugged into another power station connected with solar and pass through charging. I've seen a video with somebody doing this because I was looking into how you could charge an EV, and a guy had 4 of them lined up in his boot.
Yeah, you could do that.
Yeah.
It's slightly inefficient because the inverter being on the other panel, you lose about 20% efficiency. But yeah, 100% you could do that. Pass through. Most of them do pass through charging. So you can use an item whilst you are charging at the same time, whether it be for the mains or solar. So yeah.
Cool. There you go. Nice, simple answer for that one. I'm just trying to scan through for any other questions. How much did that book cost you, Brian?
Yeah, that's my brother. He's a knob. He knows fine well that he gave me a loan of the book.
There you go. And there you go.
That's the one.
There's the book. Miss Worm there with the link. Is that an affiliate link? Is Miss Worm earning some pennies there? Give it a click. Give it a click. Time to start working on the free energy device, says Ready Prepper One. She's also put in the 1 second after trilogy.
Oh yeah, thanks, Worm. Miss Worm, that's a brilliant book.
Yeah, I got them all on. I'm lazy. I got them in Audible, so it's driving to work, listening to it. You know, not concentrating on driving at all. If you got any more questions, guys, get them in the chat now. We've not long left. If you've no questions, we'll just off we go.
I've got a question for everybody that's on. Actually, I mean, we're talking about single points of power and sources. And it's really multiple power sources that you're actually really looking at. So you probably want a petrol generator, and then you probably want a dual fuel one. I'm definitely switching to gas. I'm 100% switching to gas. That's a thing that's happening for all the reasons that I spoke about, because it just makes sense. But then you maybe want solar, you maybe want batteries. But I was talking to my brother about this other day about rigging up hybrid systems if you had to. And then try to tell people, because he was talking about car batteries, could you use a car battery? Yeah, you could use a car battery for power sources and charge it in if you've got panels and a charge controller. Or you could rig up an alternator, assuming the diode pack hasn't been fried. But you could have a water wheel set up, possibly a small hydro scheme with steam, powering a basic alternator out of a car, right, to drive that faster, to charge your battery. The system's already in the car. You could just rip it out and build it. Dead simple. That's a poor man's power source in the event of a grid down.
Yeah.
A car battery is built for high discharge of current in a short space of time. Leisure batteries, they've got a lot more lead. So if it's lead acid, 6 cells, spongy lead, red peroxide, flows with positive, negative, blah, blah, blah. That's how it works. But you've got a lot more meat on the bones. They've got a lot more lead, and it's designed for a slower discharge over a long period of time. So whilst a car battery will work in a pinch, if you're building one, do it with a leisure battery, because they're built for 2 different purposes. Right? Yeah. So don't buy a starter battery for your solar system. Buy a leisure battery. They're designed for 2 different purposes.
Yeah. Quite expensive, though, in comparison with a car battery. But yeah, probably is worth the investment for that reason.
On the investment side, if you're building your own, either buy a really, really good battery or buy a shit one. Right? Yeah. Don't go with AGM, so absorbent glass mat or calcium or anything else. They've got a slightly higher depth of discharge, but not enough to worry about talking. Just get a couple of crappy lead acid ones and replace them in 3 or 4 years when you can afford a better battery. Spend your money on the panels and the charge controller, right?
Yeah.
And buy good batteries when you can.
Yeah. Jeanette Butler's got a good question. I think I can field this one. It's in a grid down. Do you know how long we would still get mains water? It depends on your pumping station nearby. A lot of them do have backup generators, do have backup power. However, some of them have got backup for 6 hours, and some of them have got backups for about a day or two. So you're talking, even with what's left in the pressure in the mains and the pipes and stuff like that, it's less than 2 or 3 days, in my opinion, safely anyway. Do you know any different for that, Brian?
No, I mean it depends. If you're fortunate enough to be somewhere where you've got the tower, and then it's a gravity feed, so they'll
Oh yeah,
pumping
yeah,
station will pump to that, and then it'll gravity feed down. Once that runs out and there's nothing pumping it to it, it just depends. Depends how
yeah.
many people are filling the bath, how prepared they are, they're panicking,
Mm-hmm.
how many leaks you've got in your local area. It might be Thames water, and it's all pissing out anyway.
Yeah, yeah. This is it. This is it. There's many factors. I'd love to live somewhere with the water tower. I think my first job for a group of us would to be go up there and take the bloody top off it so it can catch rainwater after the fact.
I've been watching videos about people digging their own wells, and it's a lot more straightforward than it looks. I mean, it is tempting. I did mention it to my wife, and she said that I'm taking this shit too far, was her words. So I don't think I'll be building a well, but it looked easy.
Worth a try. Worth a try. We just need to get that land first, Brian. That's it. Where we can build a well.
Wish.
My luck. I'll be like, oh yeah, this well's awesome. No, you've hit a water main, Mike.
It all counts.
It all counts. That's it. Elusive Dartmoor says, if a plug is plugged in but turned off, will it still be affect the device? Yes, it could do. If you're talking about the EMP / CME sort of thing, yes, it would, because it's just that power transferring through that line. The
It'll jump the switch.
Yeah, the isolator on the switch is like wafer thin, so
Yeah,
it's not. Yeah, it's not worth the risk. Put it that way.
So what you've got is the transmission lines are very, very high voltage. It might be like 44 kV. You need high voltage to push the current, right? If you imagine it like water in a tap. So the higher the voltage, the more it'll overcome gaps, right? So if you're in a cherry picker and you're anywhere near a power line, you want a 15-meter air gap as a rule of thumb, because there's enough voltage in that to jump and take a path to air through you. So that little gap that your switch contact is, it's nothing. It'll just go straight through.
Yeah. There's a chance stuff like that could arc around the property and cause property fires and things like that anyway. So there's a huge risk to your electronics, even if they're not plugged in. So it's one of those, it's all theoretical and hopefully never happens, of course. We no fear mongering.
If we ever have a prepper meet anytime soon, I'm away on holidays, and so is yourself. But if we ever get anything sorted out, people are genuinely interested in solar panels and how to build systems, I'll bring the van down and I'll show you how to build one from scratch, how to use bootlace ferrules, crimp it properly, put heat shrink on. It's not rocket science. It really isn't. Anybody in this chat, possibly with the exception of my brother, I wouldn't let him put a plug on, would be able to build a solar system to a reasonable standard.
Yeah, that's awesome. Yeah, we got to sort of meet out. If that's the promise now, sort of thing. I think we need to get one that's kind of up on the borders, so we can have north and south coming together a bit. Because the one that I'm doing in the Midlands in 16th to 18th of August, that's a bit of a trek for you. Plus you're going away, aren't you? Question from Mr. Atom Blue on penetrating gamma radiation from fallout and food stacked against walls like behind Brian. Yeah, okay. So he's asking about what there's no question in that sentence, but I'm guessing the question is, have we thought about it?
Anything that's sufficient to push through the roof tiles, the Celotex, that would do any damage to that will kill me by default anyway. So I don't worry about it. If you mean, would it be a barrier and a protective factor? No, there's not enough of it. There's not enough density. You can look at the tables, but concrete, so many feet of soil and everything else. But I think the question is, would it damage that and make it inedible? No, the gamma radiation will pass straight through. but the fallout if it hit it would contaminate it and you could possibly ingest it or inhale it. But gamma radiation will go straight through everything in that tin, and including me this side of it. So I wouldn't be worried about it being irradiated.
Yeah, I mean, I assume he's not on about direct gamma radiation coming in and being of that kind of volume that would do that anyway. But more so, obviously, the old duck and cover stuff was get to the center of your house, get to the safe room, right? Get to the room that's away from the walls. Would your food be at risk more than you if you were down in that room? Do you need to bring that down?
Wouldn't make a blind bit of difference, mate. There's the initial blast of the high dose of gamma radiation that will come out at the start. If I'm close enough that would be a factor on it, the blast wave and the overpressure will kill me anyway. And that's assuming the flash and everything doesn't get me. But the overpressure, if it's an airburst, flattening everything down, the blast wave coming out and coming back, the gamma radiation would be the least of my problems.
Yeah. 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 Cool. Good answer. Let's have a look what we've got. Trade prepper. I've got a few petrol generators, but when I think about using them, they're so loud and attract attention. So I've got a power station and I'm getting some solar. Great chat. Have you thought about the hydro thing? I don't know if you saw the video I did, the prepper podcast video with the guy that's got the land in Scotland. He's got a hydro electricity pump, and by the sounds of it, it's a lot cheaper to set up than solar.
If you've got the land, it's a more year-round solution. But how he's done it, no criticising. But it's mostly surface, right? You would want to get that right below the frost line. So with a hydro scheme, you want enough head of water. So you need a pooling source at the top, and then you need enough air slope and a gradient to give you enough head of water and enough flow rate to spin the turbine at the bottom. Great idea, great system. I'm all for it. If I had the land and everything else, personally, I'd make sure it was 3 foot under the frost line, and I'd have a larger pooling pond at the top. Random fact: when I was at college, my project was hydroelectrics and renewables. I've got a hard-on for pump storage systems. I think we should have more of them in the country. It's rather than solar and wind, bollocks to that. We've got hundreds of valleys, lots of rain, build lots of pumped hydro schemes, and we've got a huge hydraulic battery on demand all the time. Build more.
That makes too much sense for this government to do. Has anyone else got one of those bags you put in the bathtub and can fill up? I think a few people have been answering this in the chat, but for me, no, I've just become really OCD with cleaning the bath. Like after anyone's had a bath, it's like it gets bleached and cleaned because you never know when I might have to fill it. And for me, I think the bath water when I fill the bath in that situation, so the grid down, water's out, I think I've got enough drinking water for that bath fill water to be everything else. Hygiene, flushing, etc. So I've not really looked at the bags. Is that something you've looked at?
I'm a bit more precious with my water. I think it's a great idea, especially if you're in a flat and you've not got a garden or whatever. In that scenario, I think it's fantastic. It's a great idea. Me personally, I've went with the barrels, 55-gallon plastic barrels. So, but yeah, in principle, I think it's a great idea, and depending on your situation.
Yeah. Lots of people have said you can continue to use rainwater and stuff like that. Rainwater, says Mark. We come to the end of our questions, I think. So if nobody else has got any questions for me or Brian, I think we'll be almost ready to let Brian return to his plumbing.
Oh, mate, don't. The house is in bits.
Would you like to fill people in of what's occurring while you're filming this?
So 3 hours ago, I started out putting on a set of bath taps. I'd been encouraged, motivated by my better half to finally get it done. So I started it. But given the age of the house, there's so many different types of pipes in it, and over the ages that nothing married up. So I've been 4 times to B&Q to get the right adapters, reducers. So I sort of lost my temper the last time. I just went bollocks to it, and I bought a couple of lengths of copper pipe, the right fittings and olives, and I'll just do it from scratch. I'm just going to run new pipes. Screw it, I've had enough. I'm not pissing about anymore. I've had a moment.
Yeah, it's one of those things. Started as a tap, now he's replumbed the entire house. One time for one final question only, because she's in here and she is one of our awesome moderators. Favorite Frey Bentos pie, says Miss World. I want everyone in the chat to answer this as well before we leave. Everyone in the chat needs to answer this question before we leave.
So, steak and gravy or just chicken? What other shit is up here? Oh, chicken and curry. Yeah, I've got to say chicken and curry.
Oh, you heathen!
I'm a savage.
I'm a steak and gravy. Just the steak and gravy one. That'll do me. Steak.
What
We've got
I would say is,
oh, chicken curry, steak and kidney. Trade prepper. No, kidney does not belong in any pies.
I didn't get this waistline lately by being a particularly picky eater, so I could eat any one of them.
Yeah, doesn't give a crap. You could put anything in a fridge. There's a breakfast one. Have you seen the breakfast one?
No, but I'm going to look for it now, though.
I saw it in like a B&M bag and something like that. It was an all-day breakfast Frey Bentos pie.
I need to get that just to experience those horrible, stodgy carbs.
I have no idea. I'm not recommending it to anyone. Look at that.
It sounds disgusting.
Look at that. Ask them to ask solar and grid down questions, and they're all quiet. Ask them about Frey Bentos, and they've gone mental. Steak and gravy. Gotta be steak and gravy. Steak seems to be the most popular. Cheese and onion, says
Oh,
Johnny.
I know.
Oh, I'd rather avoid the gristly bits. Is that a Frey Bentos you don't like? Oh my god.
Oh, that sounds nasty. I've never even seen that.
Oh. However, it is dangerous eating curry during the apocalypse.
Think of that methane.
Right? Yeah, there we go. Yeah, think of the natural fertilizer that you will liquefy out of yourself. Oh, that's a horrible thought. One last thing I need to check before we go. You probably thought I was going to forget this, but I'm not going to forget this. I put a survey up on my community for what is the best out of Coca-Cola and Pepsi. The final results are 109 votes, 69% people Coca-Cola, 31% people Pepsi. You lose, Brian. You lose. You have to make the change.
They should hang their heads in shame, right? Now, I'm not saying I'm being sponsored by Pepsi or its wonderful, sweet, beautiful taste. However, that is the can you should be having. Listen to that.
You just reminded me of Wayne's World so much. Yes, and it's the choice of a new generation.
I don't drink full fat cola. I like Pepsi Max.
Coke Zero. I'm sugar free. You can tell by my wonderful physique. So on that lovely note, there we go. We got the votes coming in for that. Is it deep fried? Says Miss Worth. Oh, the Scottish stereotypes are going. Let's get out of here. Let's get out of here.
I've never had a deep fried Mars bar. Ever.
I bet you've had Pizza Crunch though.
Yes, it's lovely.
Oh, it's horrible. It's
awesome.
Oh, they use like this £1 Asda pizza and then they stick it in batter and deep fry it and call it a delicacy.
It's
anyway,
fantastic.
enough about the healthy diet north of the wall. Would you like to say goodbye to all the wonderful people that joined us?
Goodbye, wonderful people. Thanks for joining us. If you think of any other questions, stick them in the comments and we'll try and answer them. And hopefully we'll sort out something else, maybe a workshop on basic electrics and build your own panel.
Yeah. Although this is not an official Preppers Fireside, I know the branding's like up there, wherever it is on your screen. But I think we will do a Q&A with a full panel of 4 of us at some point soon. But I'll give you plenty of notice for that, so you can get us some questions pre-wrote out. So that should be cool as well. Other than that, thanks for watching, guys. Don't forget, like, subscribe, comment, consider becoming a member, and we'll see you all in the next one. Bye.
Bye, guys.
tins, bunkered down through thick and thin. Maps and routes all drawn and laid, preppers live unafraid. At the prepper's fireside we stay, ready for that fateful day. Stories shared and hearts alight, round the fire every night. In the glow of embers dance, we've prepared for every chance, living simple, living true, with the dream we all pursue.